Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Muhammad Faiszuddin bin Zakaria. Now I'm going to talk about the impact of flash flood on the economy. For the chapter 1, which is Introduction of Economics, there are three types of economy problems. There are scarcity, choices, and opportunity costs. For the scarcity, human wants are unlimited, so much so that there are simply not enough goods and services to satisfy of human. Related to the flash flood disaster, people will lose their source of income because they will not able to work during the flash flood disaster. When the flash flood disaster, people will reduce their consumptions of goods. It is because there are many goods are not available. For the choices, people will make a right choice with buying the necessity goods rather than desire good. During the flash flood disaster, people will make a rational decision after considering several alternatives. It is because people will make a right choice with buying the necessity good rather than desire good. Next, for opportunity cost. People will buy the necessity good and sacrifice the desired good, and desired good will be the opportunity cost. During the flash flood disaster, people will buy the necessity good and sacrifice the desired good. Instead, desired good will be the opportunity cost in these cases. The second best alternatives and its benefits that is given up to make the best choices. For the basic economy problem, there are three types of them. First, what to produce and how much to produce. The economy must produce more necessity good and must produce the large amount of quantity to adequate their needs. During the flash flood disaster, the economy must produce more necessity goods such as rice, bread, chicken. It is because during the flash flood disaster, many people need to buy all of them to survive during the disaster. Second, how to produce. During the flash flood disaster, the economy has to decide whether clothes is to be produced by power looms or automatic looms if many clothes lose. It is because there are many people will lose their clothes because of the level of flood increases and their things will ruin. Third, for whom to produce. And people with lower income and higher income will get more necessity goods because necessity goods are produced for everyone. During the flash flood disaster, the economy has to contribute the income in society, which is people with lower income and higher income will get more necessity good because necessity goods are produced for everyone. So the luxury goods will less demand during the flash flood disaster.
Next, for the chapter 2, demand and supply demand. From the demand curve of bread, first we can see that when the price of the bread increases from RM6 to RMA, the quantity demanded for bread will fall from 4 to 2 units. When the price of the bread decreases from RM4 to RM2, the quantity demanded for bread will rises from 6 to 8 units. Next, the determinants of demand. First, income. During the flash flood disaster, people income will affect and demand for the inferior good will increases. 2. Consumer preference. Manufacturer need to produce consumer-focused goods such as rice, bread, chicken, meat, and other necessity goods during flash flood disaster. 3. The number of buyers. During the flash flood disaster, necessity good is major consumer choice and causes demand for necessity goods to increase. 4. Price of related good. Price of substitute and demand for the other goods are directly related. And then lastly, expectation of future. Consumers' current demand will increase if they expect higher future prices. Next is the supply. The diagram shows the supply curve for vegetable. We can see that when the price of vegetable increase from RM6 to RM8, the quantity supplied for vegetable also increased from 6 to 8 units. The price of vegetable decreased from RM4 to RM6. The quantity supplied for vegetable will also decrease from 6 to 4 units. Determinants of supply. First, production cost. Higher production cost will lower profit, thus hinder supply. 2. Technology. Technological improvement help reduce production costs and increase profit and can stimulate higher supply. 3. The number of supply. More supplier in the market, more output can be produced. 4. The expectation for future prices. If producer expect future price to be higher, they will offer the products to the buyers in the future. And then lastly, government and economic policy. When the production of goods is taxed, the increases the cost of production and reduces the amount of profit earned.
Okay, Assalamualaikum everyone and also my friends. Today I would like to present about chapter 3 elasticity in subject Eco 162. This is also my group presentation for Eco 162. Alright, for my part, let's proceed on this chapter. Okay, firstly, we should know about the first part, that is price elasticity of demand. Price elasticity of demand measures the degree of responsiveness of the quantity demanded for a particular good with respect to the changes in the price. More precisely, it is the percentage change in quantity demanded relative to a 1% change in price. Okay, since there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, the law of demand and both change occurs in the opposite direction. The given formula allows to give a negative coefficient. The coefficient of price elasticity of demand will always have a negative sign. Inelastic demand define a percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price. Example of good. First, less substitute goods such as petrol. Second, important goods necessity such as rice. Third, cheaper goods such as salt as it take a small fraction from consumers' income. For the fourth is cigarettes as the goods become necessity for the smokers. Okay, if you want to know the meaning of the inelastic demand is inelastic is a change in the price of a good causes a smaller percentage change in quantity demanded. Okay, if we see the slide, we can see the curve that occurs when the inelastic demand. We can see the steeper slope of demand curve. The percent change in price P increased to P2 is larger than the percent changes in quantity demanded. Unitary elastic is percentage change in quantity demanded is equal to the percentage change in price. In the other means is a change in the price of a good causes an equal percentage change in quantity demanded. Okay, we see the slide. You can see the curve that occurs when unitary elastic occurs. So the shape of the demand curve is rectangular hyperbola demand curve. perfectly elastic. A small increase in the price of a product causes the quantity demanded for a product to drop to zero. It is very rare in real life actually. So, perfect elastic is the change in the price will change the quantity demanded by an infinite value. A small increase in price of a product causes the quantity demanded for a product to drop to zero. Okay, let's see the slide. We can see the shapes of the demand curve for the perfectly elastic. The shape is horizontal demand curve, and the price elasticity along demand curve is perfectly responsive. Perfectly elastic is different thing than the perfectly elastic. We can see the word is different in elastic and elastic. So the perfect in elastic is quantity demanded does not change as the price changes. Quantity demanded does not change as the price changes is the meaning of the perfectly inelastic. So the example of good is we can see this in the slide. First, insulin by a serious diabetic patient. Alright, the second is heroin from a drug addict. Okay, let's see the shapes of the demand curve for the perfectly inelastic. This is the vertical demand curve for the shapes, and the price elasticity along demand curve is perfectly unresponsive. This is factor influencing price elasticity of demand. First, income level. The lower income group is more elastic in their demand, then the higher income group is inelastic. Second, necessity goods versus luxury goods. The demand for essential goods is generally inelastic, while for luxurious they are elastic. Third, availability of substitutes. The larger the number of substitutes available, demand for a product will be elastic. Fourth, habits. Goods consumed becomes habits. The demand for the particular goods are inelastic. Then the last, time factor. Price elasticity of demand largely depends on time that consumers take to adjust themselves with new price of a product. This is income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand measures the degree of responsiveness of the quantity demanded for a particular good with respect to the changes in income of the consumer. Okay, we see the graph. This is the graph for elastic income elasticity. The change in the consumer's income causes a bigger percentage in change in quantity demanded. Type of good, luxury good, example sports care. This is the graph of inelastic income elasticity. The change in the consumer's income causes a smaller percentage change in quantity demanded. Type of good, normal good, example clothing, sports shoes, and also you can see the shapes of the demand curve in the slide. This part is about negative income elasticity of demand. This is the graph. If there is inverse relationship between income of the consumer and demand for the commodity, then income elasticity will be negative. The type of goods is inferior goods, example broken rice. Okay, this is the zero income elasticity graph. Very simple. If the quantity demanded for a commodity remains constant with any rise or fall in income of the consumer, and it is said to be zero income elasticity of demand. For the type of good, essential goods, example rice, bread. Okay, we go to the next. This is positive cross elasticity. In the slide says cross elasticity of demand is zero when two goods are not related to each other. For the explanation, if the coefficient is greater than zero, an increase in the price of a good leads to an increase in quantity demanded for another good. Type of relationship, substitute goods, example coffee and tea. Okay, this is the graph of negative cross elasticity. If the coefficient is less than zero, an increase in the price of a good leads to a reduction in quantity demanded for another good. The types of a relationship is complementary goods. Example, coffee and creamer. You can see the shapes of the graph in the slide. This part is zero cross elasticity. If the coefficient is zero, an increase in the price of a good will give no impact on quantity demanded for another good. The type of relationship is independent goods. Example, coffee and socks. You can see in the slide shapes of demand curve. Okay, the next part is price elasticity of supply or degree. Okay, price elasticity of supply uh, measures the degree of responsiveness of the quantity supplied for a particular good with respect to a change in a price. More precisely, it is the percent change in quantity supplied relative to a 1% change in price. Ceteris paribus, the formula for calculating the coefficient of price elasticity of supply is as follows. This is the inelastic supply. You can see the example in the slide. The slide says when the percentage change in quantity supply is lesser than percentage change in price, condition is known as relatively inelastic supplies. Okay, for the next is unitary elastic supply. Unitary elastic supply is a change in the price of a good causes an equal change in its quantity supply. The shapes of the supply that we can see in this slide is rectangular hyperbola supply curve. Okay, the next supply is perfectly elastic supply. Okay, perfectly elastic supply is the change in price will change the quantity supplied by an infinite value. Okay, let's see the shapes in the slide. The shape shown that horizontal supply curve. At a certain price, the quantity supply is infinite. Okay, for the last supply is perfectly inelastic supply. Okay, for this part, I can say no matter how the price changes, the quantity supplied will stay the same. And the shape of supply curve is also shown that vertical supply curve. You can see in this slide, the quantity supplied remain unchanged with change in price. It is said to be zero or perfectly inelastic supply. Okay, we go to the next for the part of factor influencing price elasticity of supply. First, time frames. Supply is perfectly inelastic in the momentary period in the short run and the long run. Second, perishable versus non-perishable. Perishable goods have a limited shelf life, and any changes in price will not change supply by a lot. Third, level of technology. The higher technology level, the more elastic the quantity supply will be. Then, mobility and availability of resources. If the factors of production are easily available and the quantity supply is price elastic. Last, available of inventory. Supply will be more elastic if inventories can be kept without loss of quantity and at low cost.
After chapter 3, we will go to the chapter 4, market equilibrium and government intervention, surplus and shortage. Market equilibrium is a condition whereby quantity demand and quantity supply are equal. Once the market equilibrium has been achieved, there will be no tendency for the price and quantity to change. Shortage or excess demand is a condition whereby quantity demand is greater than quantity supply. Surplus or excess supply is a condition whereby quantity supply is greater than quantity demand. Next, the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity will change when the demand or supply curve shift or change. In government intervention in the market, we will focus on price ceiling and price floor. Now, we will go to the change in demand and supply and effects on market equilibrium. The number of market during flash flood disaster. If the number of market is decreased, demand will decrease and supply is held constant. The demand curve will shift leftward from D1 to D2. The equilibrium price will reduce from P1 to P2. The equilibrium quantity will reduce from Q1 to Q2. The new equilibrium level is E2. We will go to the level of technology during flash flood disaster. If the level of technology is decreased, supply will decrease and demand is held constant. The supply curve will shift leftward from SO to S1. The equilibrium price will increase from PO to P1. The equilibrium quantity will reduce from QO to Q1. The new equilibrium level is E1. Government intervention in the market and their price ceiling. This shows the sellers have to obey the legal price by the government. Here, when the maximum price is below the market price, there will be a shortage of goods and service. For example, during the flash flood, seller must obey with the government pricing rule for the goods so people can buy it. Next, price floor. Minimum price by the government to prevent price from falling. During the flash flood disaster, the producer, which is farmer, will uncertainty about the price are too low in the market. So, the government will set a minimum price to the producers. The minimum price is set at P1, which is above the market price. This will create the problem of surplus, where the quantity supply is greater than quantity demand. Non-price control through tax. When the government imposes the tax to the sellers, as the supply of goods will leftward as the production costs increase. So, the consumer will burden the tax. But during the flash flood disaster, the demand is inelastic because consumer is less sensitive with the change in price. This might be due to the product has less substitute. So, consumer will buy the goods even though the price increase. Hence, the seller will shift more tax burden to the consumer. For the subsidies, when the government gives subsidies to the producer, it will be lower their cost in producing goods, so producer will produce more goods. Hence, supply curve will shift rightward, price equilibrium decrease but the quantity equilibrium increase. In conclusion, flash flood disaster will slow the economic growth. So, the government need to take action to ensure that the economy can still function. Therefore, the government need to take proactive steps to ensure that the economy can still function in the event of a disaster. For the chapter 1, we can see the economy on how people use scarce or limited resources to fulfill the unlimited wants. There are three basic economic concepts, which is scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost during the flash flood disaster. The economic will face the flash flood disaster with the three basic economic problems, which is what and how much to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. Chapter 2, demand and supply are the key determinants in the price of goods. The ability to manage them will help control the price of goods. The above documents has highlighted factors that could control this tapping on economic theories and principles. For the chapter 3, The elasticity its use has extremely large range of use and applications. Other examples of how elasticity is used include its effect on international trade, analysis of advertising on consumer demand, and analysis of future consumption patterns. And last but not least, Chapter 4, when the market for goods or service is in equilibrium, there are no surplus and no shortage. As buyers and sellers interact, the market will trend toward equilibrium quantity and equilibrium price. It's if an invisible hand push and pulls market toward equilibrium levels.